4CRB now presents Legal Matters, proudly brought to you by Bell and Senior Lawyers. Call them today for all your legal needs on 07 55 32 8777. This program provides general legal information only. It's not personal legal advice. Everyone's situation is different, so please seek independent advice for your own circumstances.
Well, a very good morning and welcome to the studio. Welcome to the microphone. Andrew Bell from Bell and Senior Lawyers.
Great to be back, Colin.
Well, I'm very excited about the show today. We've got a topic that sort of tickles both yours and my fancy for the fact that this was a world in a previous vocation that we both held.
Absolutely. So we were supposed to be doing family law and children's separations, but as the listeners know, and we've had some pretty positive feedback around AI and technology episodes, there's been two big stories in the news in Australia this week that touch on AI and technology law. So I thought that we would cover those while the iron is hot.
All right, before we dive into the subject matter, this is your program. This is your opportunity to get a little bit of free legal advice live on air. All you need to do is give us a call before the end of the show with your legal question. 07 55 20 8888 is the number to do that. We'd love to hear from you before the end of the show. The subject matter we talk about today, your legal question doesn't have to be constrained to that. You can ask any legal question you like. But let's dive into these two technology stories. We're about to find out what happened, what has actually been decided, what has not, and what to do about it right now. Andrew, let's get into it. What's the first one?
Well, the first one's about AI agents, which might be a term you may or may not be familiar with, but they're built into products like ChatGPT and OpenAI. And someone inadvertently hacked a website with one this week in Australia. The agents weren't tricked into it. They weren't told to do it. They just worked it out for themselves. And the second one, Kmart has sold out nationwide of an $89 pair of smart sunglasses with an inbuilt camera. And there's been a lot of demand and a lot of controversy around what you can and can't do with your new pair of sunnies.
Well, that's going to be an interesting one. I know a few years ago there were some Google glasses and they were pulled from the market because people who bought them were being accosted. So this will be an interesting topic. Let's start with the first one, Andrew, and dive into the meat and the sandwich, shall we say.
All right, so this was reported on the ABC News 2 days ago. A man in Melbourne, also called Andrew, coincidentally, asked his AI assistant, something called OpenClaw, a free and open product that someone can download and then connect their AI system of choice to it. He asked it to book him a gym class. You know, that sounds like a good thing to do for a technology. He didn't want to go into the website and log in and do all that himself. He just asked his agent to do it. He didn't ask anything about hacking in or finding loopholes. He just said, "Can you book this for me?" And what happened on its own initiative, the agent found that the booking system had a security gap. It let bookings go further ahead than it should have, and it let him actually modify other people's bookings. So so it logged in as the user, nothing on the server stopped him. He cancelled a different person's class and then booked in Andrew into the gym class of his choice.
Wow. Okay, so when we actually think about it on the face of things, it doesn't really sound like a legal question, but it was a simple request for the AI to book a gym class, and it's exposed a major threat online.
It has, because this person just asked for a gym class, but what happens if they'd asked for, how do I get to work faster? And the AI decided to hack into the traffic light system so he'd have green lights all the way into work. Or what happens if he wanted a discount on his power bill and suddenly our power utilities have got loopholes found in them?
How do I get a better interest rate on my home loan?
Well, I think they're valid questions to ask. You just don't expect if I ask my bank manager that he'll then suddenly, do something dodgy.
That's correct. But the software's gone out of bounds, for want of a better term.
It has. So the way they train these AIs is that they do a lot of what's called positive reinforcement. And the AI agents are trained to try and make the person who's asking questions happy.
Sure.
So if it tried to do something and it couldn't do it, it will try and find another way because it doesn't want to disappoint you. Something happened overseas in OpenAI, who actually make ChatGPT, last week had hacked another major website when they were training things. They were told it was doing an exercise, and it went and hacked one company, then another company to be able to get in, all because they hadn't fed the proper password into it. So this isn't necessarily isolated, and I think it's going to become more common. The interesting legal question for me is, well, so what does this all mean?
And who's responsible is usually the next one, because again, if that gym company says, hey mate, you've done the wrong thing by us, even though you were just booking a gym session, you've broken our system, there's an issue here.
There is. So normally software isn't classed as a legal person. If software does something or doesn't do something, it can't be sued, it can't be charged, it can't be held liable at law. We've had discussions that AI can't necessarily even hold copyright. And that's because we have a concept of a legal person. However, maybe AI is changing all of this. If I have a dog and it bites someone, I'm legally responsible for the actions of my dog. Even if I haven't told them to bite someone, they needed to be properly supervised. And if they weren't properly supervised, I was probably negligent. Similarly, in software at the moment, as long as I haven't sat down to actually write something to say, I'm going to hack into this bank, or I'm going to hack this gym software, or whatever else it's going to be, most of the Crimes Acts say have that element of intent. So, yeah, am I planning on draining Colin's bank account? Am I planning on disrupting the traffic management system? Or have I engaged someone else to do so? All of those would be crimes. But if I've just asked a very innocent question, like, can you book a gym booking for me on Friday?
Sure.
Where does the liability lie? But the problem is that people could suffer real damage.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, if that gym software is now broken, it is unable to take bookings, well, there is a real risk of them losing revenue at the time, and then looking for the person who caused that, or the initial person who put the command into the system. Again, this is where the lines of the law aren't too clear just yet.
No, they aren't. I think we can look at some other things in parallel, like negligence, and normally we've talked about the but-for test before. But for your actions, would this have happened? And then we look at what would a reasonable person have done in the circumstances. So if you're getting a piece of technology to do a task for you, what should a reasonable person do? And this gets even more complicated. If I log onto a website and book a holiday, I don't know what's happening behind the scenes. No. I've just clicked on the website and said I want that ticket. I don't know if it's cancelled someone else or whatever else it's done.
That's right.
If I download a piece of software on my computer, it's exactly the same thing. Now, it may be able to show some outputs, but how much of that needs to be read? And I think this is going to go through the courts. I don't think that someone's going to sue necessarily for the gym, but as you said, if the software broke their whole booking system and they can't have revenue for 2 weeks and need to pay IT experts come out, reconfigure it, fix it, etc., well, they're not going to be happy. Their customers aren't going to be happy.
That's right.
At some point, someone's going to get sued over this. So I think you need to be very careful if you're operating a system like this to periodically go through the logs and actually see if it's doing what you think that it's supposed to be doing.
Look, it's something that everybody is using. We're even using it here at 4CRB to do simplistic things, and that's just reorganising or prioritising or finding the most important emails in the morning so we can deal with those first. But they're relatively benign. And you would have thought book me a gym session is relatively benign.
Absolutely. I would have thought it would have either come back and said, I can't do that, or here you go, or it's full, not, oh, actually, I found a weakness in the software and I've decided to exploit it. You know, you're okay with that, right?
Yeah. So, well, we sort of start to think back to some of those old movies that came out where they had to put in a moral compass or a moral guideline to some of these software systems. Otherwise, they just went haywire.
Absolutely. And I think the ramifications go long more than just that person with the agent. If you've got software now, it's you've got to anticipate where in the past maybe the gym was a low-value target for hackers. They would say, we don't have any money online. The worst they're going to do is deface the website. We don't really have anything much going on. Now you potentially, if anyone says that anything's going strange with your software, you probably need to check it out sooner rather than later, because there might be a backdoor that's been found by OpenAI or LLMs in general, and people are exploiting it. The chances, of all of these agents being out there's probably many more agents now than there are hackers.
Yes.
So I think if you're running a business and you've got a website or a piece of software that's not performing, you now need to jump onto that relatively quickly.
That's a very interesting point of view, because we hadn't thought of it from that point. And that's probably exactly right. Let me just intercede here for a moment and say this is a Talkback program, and Andrew and I are very involved in this topic, being that it was a previous life of ours. You do not have to define your question around the topic of the day. Any legal question is welcome this morning. 0755 208888 is the number. We'd love to hear from you. Halfway through the program, don't leave it too much longer. So let's boil it down. So is anything being actually decided here legally, Andrew?
Well, no, I don't think so. It would not surprise me to find someone charged with hacking who's put in something innocent. Wouldn't surprise me to see someone getting sued, either the gym or the gym software or the person requesting the membership who cancelled, all going through the courts before some of this gets decided. And I think ultimately the politicians are going to have to decide where the guardrails are and what a responsible internet user does nowadays.
Yeah, look, it's very interesting because there are other court cases going on. I know Anthropic has been in trouble for having its software read thousands upon thousands of books because it wasn't artistic enough for you to say, write me a novel. And it's now had to pay out a huge copyright fee to all of these writers who have written books in the past that the model has read to come up with the engine to write a book.
Absolutely. Overseas in America, there was a class action lawsuit on this topic. I believe authors are going to get $2,000 or $3,000. But yeah, they were buying up massive amounts of second-hand books, slicing the spines off them, scanning them, feeding them into their software, and then burning them on the other side. And their argument is that that's well within their acceptable usage under copyright law. My reading is that it's dicey in Australia as to proper uses for copyright. They're not retaining the information, which would be a complete copy, but they are taking commercial advantage of this information. But how much so, and is an interesting question. If it's less than 10%, normally there's some thresholds in copyright law. So so the companies behind these don't have squeaky clean records. Some of them also are accused of illegally pirating books to be able to train their models, because behind the scenes, the more natural language you can get, the more people talking, the way people actually create documents, the better that their models can actually reproduce those same tasks. So they have this insatiable appetite for data, which is also very controversial. And they're also very interested in stuff before 2022 because they're worried now that there's so much AI-generated content on the internet that they're actually going to train themselves on their own outputs and make their output worse.
Yeah, that's very interesting, isn't it? And the future is going to be very interesting to watch. We do need to have guardrails in place with this sort of thing because it can get out of hand very quickly, just as we've seen in this very simplistic example. Now, let's go over, are there any legal
cut
precedents?
To a sponsor break and then we'll come back and talk about sunglasses.
Perfect. That sounds like a great idea. Let's hear an ad from our sponsor.
Wills, probate, powers of attorney or property matters are legal issues that can feel overwhelming. Don't put off dealing with them. Call our trusted sponsors, Bell and Senior Lawyers. They explain everything in plain English and guide you through every step of the way. For caring, experienced advice, phone 07 55 32 8777 or head to bellsenior.com.au today. Bell and Senior Lawyers, making legal matters simple.
There we go, making legal matters simple. We're trying to do that this morning with a very complex equation, but we've just talked about a gym being hacked in Australia, and now we're going to move on to Kmart, and Kmart has sold out of camera glasses famously this week, and they're about $85. I do remember looking at them myself, thinking, okay, well, this is interesting. Meta have got them. There's a few others out there. Andrew, I'm going to let you start this one off on the second story and tell us about this little issue.
As you said, Anko branded camera glasses for $89. You can't buy them if you want to. They're the latest hot property, not sponsored by Kmart. But these glasses take photos while you're wearing them. They take 1080p, so HD video. They have Bluetooth. They take hands-free calls. They look almost identical to Meta, the company behind Facebook's Ray-Ban smart glasses, that cost here between $300 and $700, depending on how fancy you want to go. I don't believe that they have an upfront display in them like the Meta ones, but essentially it means you can go anywhere wearing your glasses and record people and have information go to the internet based on those recordings. So where do we stand with that? There's a lot of people who are pro that this might be able to help them, and a lot of people against.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? And just a real-world example here. We have cameras in the building. We are able to record voices at times as well in certain areas, like studios. We have to make everybody absolutely aware that they're on camera and we are recording voices at certain times. So that's our legal responsibility. How does it work here?
Well, in Queensland, which governs the legislation for recording people, there is a few laws, the Invasion of Privacy Act, and it covers listening devices. And listening devices is audio and doesn't really cover video devices. And it's legal in Queensland to record people without their consent in a place that's in the public or where they wouldn't expect to normally have privacy. So you can't go into change rooms, you can't go, taking photos of people near naked and in bedrooms and places where they'd expect privacy, but otherwise, you can typically record people in Queensland wherever you feel like recording them as a private person. As an employer, you do have a duty to disclose to your employees if you're monitoring them, but if you're walking around with these glasses and recording people, well, you're pretty much within the law, no matter how offensive people find it.
Wow. All right, 0755208888 is the number to call and have your question answered live on air. It doesn't have to be about the topic of the day. A little bit of free legal advice this morning is what's on offer, and we'd love to hear from you. 10 minutes left in the program. Andrew, that surprises me. I would have assumed we had a right to it. I remember in certain water parks putting in camera systems because of problems with people peeping on children in bathing suits. I would have thought that we did have a right to privacy wherever we were.
Well, no. No is
the answer.
Simple. No, we don't. If no one is aware of a recording, if someone puts a covert device in and everyone being recorded isn't aware, then that's a crime.
Yes.
But if the person, say, wearing or carrying the device is aware of the recording, and again, it's not in somewhere where someone would expect to have privacy or doing something that they'd be expect to keep private, then in Queensland at the moment, it's okay.
Wow.
And the reason why this is something that's been able to be done since we've had GoPros and all sorts of other things. The element that interests me in this is that the cameras, people don't know that they're being recorded. Even if there's an LED on the frame, they might just think that's a stylistic thing. And then we have the complication of stuff getting uploaded into the cloud in real time. People have been able to take the Ray-Ban smart glasses and be able to actually hook them via Bluetooth into their phone, running algorithms that have been able to do facial recognition from publicly available data. So I can walk down the street and say, oh, that's Colin. Hey, Colin, how are you going? So that anonymity that we normally walk along and don't get recognised or don't have any, what if you've had a headline about you in the past or whatever else could come immediately to view for the person looking at you on the other side of the train. This is another level of privacy intrusion that's never really been anticipated by humans before, and we're now selling them for $89 out of the back of Kmart.
Wow. So yes, the law does have to catch up. We've got our first caller, and a reminder, we would love to hear from you before the end of the show. 0755 208888 is the number. Very good morning to Sandra. Sandra, ask your question of Andrew.
Oh, hi. Pardon me. Hi, Andrew. I just want you to explain to me the difference between tenants in common and joint tenants, please.
Okay. Do you have a specific question you're trying to resolve with the differences?
Oh, no, I don't. It's many years ago when my late husband and I bought property down here on the Gold Coast. The legal representative did all the forms for us, and in that transaction, she put us down as tenants in common, and that was picked up by a legal firm here on the Gold Coast, and that was changed. My late husband, of course, is gone, but I just wanted you to explain to me the difference and any ramifications that could have happened if it had remained as tenants in common.
Okay, so joint tenants is often what married couples would buy property as, and joint tenants own equal undivided shares of property with a right to survivorship. So what this means is that both parties effectively equally and jointly own the property. There's no 50%. It's completely owned. If you're joint tenants and one of the people on the title die, you can have more than two with joint tenancy, then they go off the title, and the other person who's on the title, if they're the only person, has 100% ownership of that property going forwards automatically. Doesn't matter about a will. So this is why you would normally do it for married couples. If your husband were to die and you own them as joint tenants, then you would end up with the sole name on the property with 100% ownership. Now, tenants in common is where you have multiple parties that own distinct, equal or unequal shares. You could have, if you had two people, it could be 50-50, but it could be 90-10. It could be any difference between them. And the difference between that is you can actually sell your individual share if there is tenants in common. Also, if someone dies, that right of survivorship that we talked about doesn't exist. So if you were to own it 50-50 with your husband and your husband were to pass, then that 50% would actually go to his estate and would be distributed per the terms of his will. Now, we had a question a couple of weeks ago about married couples and about names on title. And it is possible via a gift for married couples without being subject to the state taxes on it, but subject to conveyancing fees, being able to either go from tenants in common to joint tenants or go from joint tenants to tenants in common by mutual agreement. So it is possible to move these things around, and there are tax reasons or asset protection reasons in addition why people may or may not want to own them as joint tenants or tenants in common. There's also an FAQ on the website if you wanted to go into more detail on this. Does that help answer your question, Sandra?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much for that. I just wanted to get a law person's, details about what the difference between those two are, and you've clarified that for me very nicely. Thank you very much, Andrew.
Wonderful, Sandra. Have a great day.
Yeah, good on you, Sandra.
Bye.
All right, we're getting close to the end of the program. There is a chance for you to get in and ask your question before the end of the program. You're going to have to be quick. 0755 208888 is the number, and run for that phone right now. So, Andrew, we've got about 3 minutes left in the program. There are lots of questions here. someone walking into your business with these glasses on, employees wearing them, there's a lot to cover. I might let you summarise those in the last 3 minutes.
There is, and again, a lot of this is undecided. I do think that if someone was using glasses to intimidate someone with a recording, then that may fall under a criminal statute. If you do run a business, I do think you'd have the ability to ask someone to leave who was wearing them. But that gets complicated because there are blind people who are using their glasses, or vision impaired people who are using these smart glasses who think they're the best thing that's ever happened to them, who can describe, there's a doorway in front of you, there's a microphone, there's whatever you can see. So potentially they're a disability aid as well, and someone's going to get in trouble telling someone to remove their smart glasses who's using them in an assistive capacity. But I think it's just important for people to be aware that they exist.
Yes.
If you see someone with what looks like a camera in their lens or an LED, you probably are being recorded, or at least you should assume that you're being recorded. And then you need to decide whether that's something you would accept if someone was shoving a mobile phone in your face. I don't really see a lot of difference. And again, I think that the current laws don't really support what I think society wants out of smart glasses. I don't really want to be walking down the street and being recognised, or, having a criminal client having stuff thrown at them because of allegations that are made, and someone's recognised them from the paper through the smart glasses or anything else. I think it would change society if everyone's wearing them. So again, I think just like the previous example of what are the extents that an AI agent can go and who's responsible, if someone's wearing smart glasses that are connected to the cloud, that are recording, writing, transcribing as you go, I think that this is a matter of public policy that the politicians need to get involved with. But if you are concerned about privacy or need to write guidelines, then I think that's something you should consider for your business.
Look, it's that atypical statement where we highlight these issues, and the best way to go is grab your local politician and say, hey, I am concerned and it's time for you to start legislating. Because they're big issues. AI is one of those things that we talk about in the background, and that you can go to the nth degree, and it can be, what do we believe anymore? Because that is one of the outcomes down the track. Someone's recording me and I just said an off-the-cuff funny remark, and all of a sudden I'm now in trouble.
Yes, getting sued for defamation is a definite possibility.
All right, Andrew, I know that everybody enjoyed the topic because we have had the feedback in the past. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Thank you very much to Sandra who called in. We'd love to hear from you next week, and we might pick a more mundane topic so we can take a few more callers. Absolutely. We'll go back to looking at parenting disputes, and if people want to read more about the actual laws behind these, there's an analysis on the Bell and Senior website. Perfect. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
You've been listening to Legal Matters, proudly brought to you by our trusted sponsor, Bell and Senior Lawyers. Call them today for all your legal needs on 07 5532 8777. A copy of this and past programs and all relevant resources will be available for you to replay or download on bellsenior.com.au and 4crb.com.